Hello, my name is Tracy Allen, and I want to welcome you to Cooking with Some Friends. Hello everyone and welcome to Cooking with Some Friends. I am making some boardwalk fries and I have my oil heating and I need to heat it to 375. Ahead of time though, with the other stuff that I've been preparing, I took 4 large russet potatoes and I peeled those, which you wouldn't have to peel them. And then I used my French fry slicer and made about 1/2-inch slices. And I put those in a combination of 4 cups of lukewarm water and 2 tablespoons of salt. And that makes it a little bit different than when we make regular homemade fries, because that you put in cold water and don't necessarily put salt on them. And you normally leave those for a lot longer than you do when you make boardwalk fries. Boardwalk fries, we're only putting them in this for about 15 minutes. Now I'm going to drain those. And then I need to pat them dry before we fry them, because you know what happens when you get water in oil. I've got a can or a jar of our home canned pears that we're going to have with supper, so I'm going to set that aside. So we're just waiting for that oil. We're going to pat our potatoes dry. And we'll start cooking those as soon as that oil comes to temperature. Now, when we fry these, I'm only going to fry them till they're starting to brown, and then I'll remove them and fry the rest of them, and then I'll come back and refry, just like we do a regular fry. So I put our first batch of boardwalk fries in, and they've been cooking 2 or 3 minutes, and they're just barely beginning to brown. When they get just a little more color to them than that, I'm going to put them on paper toweling and then do the next batch. Okay, our boardwalk fries are showing a little bit of color, so I'm going to let the oil come back up to heat, and then I'm going to refry to a golden brown. And the thing that makes these different than regular fries, boardwalk fries normally you would find on the coast on the boardwalk, but they serve theirs with malt vinegar or cider vinegar and Old Bay seasoning. So that's one of the big differences. It's not just salted fries. Okay, our boardwalks, I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of Old Bay seasoning. And then they're ready to go. Your vinegar's there if you want it. Hello everyone and welcome to Cooking with Some Friends. I've got several recipes going on today, and a lot of them are because of necessity. I've got some leftover things that I need to use up, and so I don't want those to go to waste, so I'm going to use those in a casserole or a dessert or some other things, and I'm going to share those recipes with you. Another reason is we're talking about some state recipes, or I have been talking about those, and one of the things we're going to make is a Kentucky or just a southern dessert. It's bread pudding, and the thing that makes it Kentucky is in the sauce more than anything, but sometimes bread pudding is called poor man's pudding, and you can understand why, because it's just the leftover day-old bread that they use to make it. But anyway, it's a southern tradition. It's just a good thing. I've got a neighbor and a friend who she makes the best bread pudding. So anyway, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do some bread pudding with a vanilla bourbon sauce that goes over it. So to start with, I've got my sugar in my bowl, and I've got 1 cup of sugar. My oven's hot at 350. And I have 4 eggs that I'm going to beat together with my sugar until that's light and fluffy. It'll take a couple of minutes. I've also gone ahead and sprayed my casserole that this is going to be baked in. And I took a 1/2 loaf of bread that I needed to use up, of white bread, and I tore that up into pieces. And I'm going to use that for the bread pudding. But let's start with making the pudding part. So we have our 4 eggs and our 1 cup of sugar, and we're gonna beat these to light and fluffy. Okay, now I don't know if you can see how the consistency has changed, but now that we have that done, I have melted 1 stick of butter, and I'm going to add that to our mixture. And a teaspoon of vanilla. And then 2 cups of half and half. And I'm just going to lightly mix this together. And I am going to add just a little bit of salt. I don't need very much, just to flavor a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to take my casserole and my bread that I crumbled, and I'm going to put that in my casserole. And any kind of leftover white bread would work. If you have a brioche or a crusty bread, that would work as well. Okay. But you do what you have left over so it doesn't go to waste. And then I'm going to pour this over and mix it in a little bit. Put this in my 350-degree oven and let it bake. And this needs to bake for about 35 to 40 minutes. Part of that will depend on the type of bread you use. Sure it's down in there. I don't want to overmix it. I just want to gently get it down in. Okay. I'm gonna go in the oven. Okay, I just pulled our bread pudding out of the oven. I will share again when I make the sauce that goes over this that makes it Kentucky bread pudding. Our supper's in the oven, so I'm going to go ahead and make the sauce that goes over our bread pudding. And in my pan, I have 1 cup of sugar. To that, I'm going to add 1 cup of water and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and just a little bit of salt, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. I don't want very much. And I'm going to let this cook, stirring it until it thickens, just slightly. At that point, I'm ready to add in the 2 tablespoons of butter and my vanilla, that I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and then just a splash of Kentucky bourbon. And you can leave the bourbon out if you want to. It just adds that southern flair, that southern flavor to it. So we're just going to wait for this to slightly thicken, and then you'll pour it over individual servings of our bread pudding. Okay, our sauce is just thickened just a tiny bit, so I'm ready to take it off the heat. And to that then, I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of butter. And my teaspoon of vanilla. And then my splash of Kentucky bourbon. And I looked this up in case you may have known. A splash is a 1/2 ounce, which is considered the same as a tablespoon. So that's how much bourbon goes in here. And then we're going to stir this up, and then this will be poured over our bread pudding. When we're ready to serve it. That butter melt down completely, and then it's ready. Thanks for joining us for this session of Cooking with Some Friends. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And find us on Facebook at Cooking with Some Friends.